What's up, America? Football fans all over the place. Thanks for tuning in for this special presentation of Week 13 playoff Pigskin football. Our schedule still jam-packed right here on the OH Report, as plenty of teams in our own backyard are still competing for their right to contend for a state championship in multiple different divisions, and we've got the juices flowing here. We're excited about what's coming up here on Friday night, so I got me and a couple of the gang here in studio tonight, plus a lot of callers as well on the way for this very special presentation. I am Brian Skowronski, but also have Travis Berardi here in the building, a.k.a. K-Mac Trav, and Joshua Banks as well is hanging out with us here tonight. And we'll start with you, Trav. The most underrated conference for small schools in the entire state, according to you, is the K-Mac.
You darn
they
right.
Still got two teams playing, baby, looking to go to Week 14.
Well, they had three, but two of them had to play each other, and the Golden Knights of Northmor
They're just that good.
handled Centerburg. But also, too, if you look at the great Martin RPI, he has both those K-Mac teams winning their regions and making it to the Final Four, as well as one other squad we'll be talking about tonight, those Hillsdale Falcons. Yeah,
looking forward to all of that. Joshua Banks, who you just saw, too. That was a little foreshadow. You've seen a lot of MOAC, a lot of N10 this season, and we've still got a handful of those teams competing this weekend as well.
Yeah, a lot of MOAC schools and a lone N10 school in Mohawk, and I'm excited to talk about them tonight.
Jonathan Langdon also is going to be part of our crew here tonight. He's been a part of the K-Mac Corner basically all season with you, Trav. So he's down in Blue Devil country tonight, checking in with Coach Blum and the Devils to bring you some really cool access to them.
Also, if you guys are looking right here, we have every single regional semifinal coming up this week, top and bottom. So these are your first half of the bracket in one region, and then down here is the other side of the bracket in the other region. So we have every single game for your viewing pleasure, but we will talk about our 9 teams that are still left at 9 teams. Regional semi. How fun has this season been, Brian?
You know, and football is the only sport that doesn't have an expanded postseason outside of what we saw in 2020 already. So these are, the same old, if you will. We just have teams that have really stepped up here in North Central Ohio. Of course, our little web has grown over the last several years. So
we're Big Walnut and
we're
Hillsdale
expanding a bit to include some of these teams, but it's not just going to be us talking about it tonight as well. We've got 2 special coaches who are going to be on the hotline tonight, including the upset, one of the best Cinderella stories in all of the tournament. Mr. Andrew Sayers of Lexington is going to join us with a few words, and then plus also from the OCC and unblemished, my Ashland Arrows, the OCC champions, the number 4 seed in their region. They're looking to continue on into a regional championship. We'll hear from Scott Valentine.
Legend.
Will join us on the line. But we're going to begin tonight, guys, with 2 teams from the very same county that actually reside right here where we are hanging out.
And where's
tonight.
the game going to be?
The game is going to be
right here.
Historic Arlen Field, just right down the street here on 4th Street. So a lot of buzz, plenty of excitement. There's a lot of juice behind this game. The number 2 seed, the Shelby Whippets, the number 3 seed, the Ontario Warriors, the last 2 MOAC champions. Shelby beat them, of course, in Week 9, so this is a rematch, and everybody's been looking forward to this one all around the area. I want to start here, though, by checking in with a young man who's going to be up for a very special award, we think.
We
hope. It is all said and
should
done.
be.
The Mr. Football Award, because our own Shane Young took a trip over to Whippet Country today, and he had a chat with Mr. Braden DeVito. Here is our one-on-one conversation with the kid that's helped propel this team to 12-0 and looking to move on to a regional final.
I'm feeling great. I'm excited for the guys and the opportunity, and going to the semis is big enough alone, let alone having a cross-town rival. So it just adds to the atmosphere. It's going to be awesome. Looking at the flaws that we made the first time around, little things. You don't have room in the playoffs to be making little mistakes and having turnovers. You got to be laser focused. So this winner go home. I mean, it means you're done. So I love this role. I love that blessing of this role to be able to lead the young guys because I was a young guy once with other people and they had to lead me. So just keeping everybody on the right mindset and getting ready for this season. 1, 2, 3, Ontario.
Awesome to hear from that kid.
Oh,
And
yeah.
obviously, he's a spark plug for that team, man. He's just a junior, but he's kind of emerged as the leader, a 3-year starter at quarterback. It's kind of rare at a program that has the cachet of a Shelby to be able to be in a position where you're a 3-year starter. But what I want to talk about here to start, guys, is during the postseason journey so far for Shelby, I've been a little surprised, and I'll let you answer this first, Travis. Do you think it's a good thing for them that they've had to have some clutch performances so far here? Last week against Ottawa Glandorf, Braden DeVito, the big 74-yard touchdown run, they were not out of the high water until that big run to put them up by a couple of scores. And then the previous week, even though they ended up kind of putting Elida to bed late in that game, that they were trailing in the second half. So do you think that that is a feather in the cap of Coach Mahaney and, of course, for these Whippets to have been a little bit tested so far at the end of games right now in the tournament?
Well, I think let's take you back a few weeks before that, the game that you did, the Clearfork game. I think that was a good test for them because it was even, midway through the late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter. They weren't out of that, too, and they had to be tested. I mean, it goes back to even then. So I think the Clearfork Colts, even in a game that we thought was going to be a blowout, helped them out. But they've had enough. The Ontario game, part 1, down the line late in the season, G game because, I mean, OG needed a late score to beat Gallion. Shelby already ran over Gallion. You thought, oh, that was going to be a blowout too. But, getting battle tested like that, it's going to help out. And, I mean, you have a quarterback that's got 53 total touchdowns on the season.
55, sir.
55,
he's got a pick
yeah.
6 and a receiving touchdown.
That's true.
Don't short him.
Yes, yeah. 55, 3,400 yards passing, 1,300 yards rushing, and, yeah, even receiving, he has 76. So this kid is
He doesn't stop.
I'm always reminded Boobie Miles when his granddad or his uncle at the beginning when he's going through all the stuff, he's talking to the scouts. He's like, and he can pass. Well, he can catch. So, when you have a guy like DeVito that can bring you back in close games, you just got to keep it close. Even if you're down, you keep it close, and then Braden is going to spin. Not Boobie. Braden's going to spin. But on the other side of things,
well, we're not there yet.
Yeah,
we're not there.
I'm just saying.
Relax.
But
Relax, buddy. Travis just went over basically all the stats so far that you've heard from Braden DeVito this season. That's why we feel like he's a Mr. Football candidate. He had 7 total touchdowns against Ontario in that Week 9 matchup, Josh. Even though they have a lot of different pieces and parts, Bowman's a big part of that, the running game up front. Do you think that Braden DeVito ultimately is the key to this game on either side of the football? Is if he plays well, do you anticipate Shelby wins?
Let's look at everything they lost last year. I don't think anybody anticipated them to be this good this year, but this young man comes back, has one of the best seasons that we've seen in our area in a long time.
Yeah, maybe ever.
If he puts up 5-6 touchdowns again in Week 13, they have a very, very, very good possibility of winning and going on to Week 14 and a regional final.
All right, Travis, you were trying to get to this next guy, the athlete, as we call him here on the OH reporting. And that's exactly what this dude is. Mr. Bodpen Miller, a senior over on the other side for Ontario, very dynamic guy, 4 total touchdowns in the win over Clyde last week, and really showed a physical presence and dominance, I think, in that game to running clock, a Flyers team many were predicting would come in and maybe be on upset alert, that being Ontario, and they really handled business there. Do you think his ability and what he brings to the table, being able to throw a very nice deep ball plus scramble, is more challenging to deal with than a Braden DeVito, where it's more designed for them? Things come in the flow of the offense, and when it's a run for Braden DeVito, normally you know that it's coming. Do you think the Bob Penn's a little bit more challenging to get ready for, because when the play breaks down, that's when he's at his best?
That's the whole thing. You're expecting a run from DeVito, but you're not expecting that from Bogpen. You have to focus on both. If you think it's going to be a quarterback run, you're probably going to stack the box. But like you said, Bogpen, he can take off when you're going in the cover 2, cover 3, you're going man, things like that. You have to have a spy. You have to have somebody in there. And then something that you were very impressed of as well with the Warriors when you saw them against Clyde, how big they are, how physical that line is, that allows or to have the time to scramble, to escape. That keeps that block an extra second or two for him to see the field and then think, am I taking off, or do I have a second for my wide receiver to get open?
His numbers, maybe not as gaudy as DeVito's, but when you look from top to bottom, almost 1,900 yards passing, 17 touchdowns there, almost 1,700 yards rushing and 17 more touchdowns there. So Bob Penn, he's the truth. That's why Ohio State's on him. That's why he's going to be a future Buckeye, and he'll be checking into the spring game. He will be going early down to Columbus. But this team, much more than Mr. Miller. I had a chance to go over to practice yesterday and observe what they have going on culturally. I talked to Coach Aaron Eckert along with 4 other players, and here's what they had to say about what's changed for this Ontario program over the last few weeks over there on Grit Street, just to get ready and prepared to make a deep playoff run, the best in program history.
I mean, we've had the confidence. I knew we lost a lot of guys, but I knew we had the guys, the talent, the mentality just to step up. People prove themselves, and we had the guys to just fill those spots, be a great team.
I think we all knew that we could be a pretty good team. We just needed the senior leadership to step up. We found that out early summer, and we've continued to step up our leadership, and it's really shown out on the field.
It starts in the weight room in the summer. I mean, we did a really good job this summer, and it's our line. Just starts with our line. Our line's really physical each game, like our D-line and everyone. Our defense especially. Offensive line does a pretty good job too.
Practicing in pads, full pads. It's just kind of a calling card of what we do, and it's probably not a secret as to why we're so physical, I guess, in the game, just because that's a commitment we make to the weight room. Lift at 6 a.m. during the season still, lift 4 days a week, and just that grind or that commitment to just doing things the right way, I think, paid off for us over the last couple years.
Well, you get to play in round 3 of the playoffs, and nobody in Ontario history has ever been able to do this. What do you think that's going to mean to you in the future, understanding that, I mean, you guys are the first?
It's pretty cool, honestly, to be a part of history and to even potentially go further. It's a pretty good feeling, especially we've worked our butt off, put in the work, and now we're here.
So you guys get a big win on Friday night. About an hour later, Shelby gets the win. What's been the buzz like around the team over these last few days in anticipation of what's coming up on Friday?
We've just been ready. Even since we lost, we were just hoping that we'd get the chance again, and here it is in front of us, so we're all pretty excited for this week.
Now you get to set up the rematch now. You get Shelby round 2. Over the last few weeks, is this something that you guys have kind of been thinking about and hoping would land on the schedule again?
Yeah, definitely since the playoff bracket, even since we lost, we knew we had this opportunity again. And just as the defense, we played probably the worst game we've played. Didn't play our best, so we're going to really take that one personal and try to just play better this week.
It's something that we said after the game. Coach Miller, our defensive coordinator, one of his first words after the game is that we'll see him again. They got us in the regular season. They got us twice in the regular season in the fourth quarter when we've been up. So now it's time to kind of flip that script.
All right, Friday night, Ontario versus Shelby, round 2. You're going to play at Arlen Field, historic place, big venue. What's your anticipation and excitement like right now that you're still 3 days out?
Oh, it's ecstatic. Ever since we got that loss, it's just been we're working up to this, and now it's revenge week. Now this is the time. We got to play our best game, even though we didn't week 9. It's week 13 now. It's different. It's a different feeling. We gotta get that one back.
So obviously that's probably the most exciting matchup that we have going down in our backyard this weekend. Just given the venue, who is playing, and obviously the 2 quarterbacks certainly helps.
No
but what I've been most interested in with the Ontario story beyond Bob Penn Miller, which might be the best, is just that their commitment this season is beyond what I think most high school kids are willing to do. They show up before school starts 4 days a week, and they lift weights, and they went from a team last year that was more of a spread offense, Josh, and they would come at you with a variety of different eye candy before the play, and then they would get it to all these great playmakers and receivers. Now they just run it down your throat. They line up. They feel like they're going to be stronger than you. They have not been wrong very often this season. how much of a difference do you think that makes for not just this team, but really any team? When I've heard these type of stories, they tend to make deep playoff runs, and they are the more physical, dominant predator when they're on the field.
That's something Coach Eckert really pushes anywhere he's at, is get in the weight room, get stronger, be more physical. If you can win at the line of scrimmage, you're going to win a football game. They teach that at every level at Ontario, from 7th grade to 12th grade. Their 7th grade kids are just as big, just as strong for their level as we see these high school kids at the high school level, and it's been an important part of it. They've got the athletes around. They've got big grizzly bears up front, as we'll call them, because there's some big dudes up there. And then they got Mason Van Tilburg in the backfield with Bogdan Miller, who is an amazing dynamic duo back there. You can't stop them both. Most teams can't even stop one.
And with both the Mahon boys and some of the other weapons that they've been able to develop in the passing game, Ontario's a lot more than just Bodpen. And what we saw in the first game, where what we have, guys, 86 combined points in that one.
As expected, yeah.
The game over at Shelby. So let me pose this question to you then, Trav. So the over-under on that one, I put early in the year at like 65. If I give you over 63.5, over under, do you feel like the team who's going to win this game has to have like at least 35 points or more, or where would you land your bet if you were allowed to?
40. I think 40 is the number that one of these teams has to get. I think 70 would be the over under for me. A 36-34 game or something like that, 40 to 33. I just, if the tough luck onside kick recovered by Shelby at the end of the game. If Bogdan Miller gets the ball in his hands, that game might still be going on. Yes. Honestly, like he had 2 minutes and 30 some seconds left in that game. That's plenty for him to get down the field. As you saw, that both teams are scoring like this the whole night. He goes down there and scores. That game might be all Tiffin Columbian Shelby when the Brennan Armstrong breakout game that went how many overtimes. That might be something that rivaled that. But hey, guess what? We get a chance to maybe see that this time at Arlen Field.
And as you heard from the Ontario players, that's what they were looking forward to. They were hoping that they would get another opportunity to go head-to-head with the Whippets. I'm not so sure that maybe Shelby feels that way. They already took care of them. Probably didn't want them to land back on the schedule, but since they are, it is what it is, and it's going to be a great game coming up. And last Friday, you talked about Miller and just everything that he does for this team. He was my MVP against Clyde, 4 total touchdowns, and just had total command of the offense. I talked to him after the game, and here's what he said that really struck me about being more than just playing for yourself or as a team. They're playing for everybody in the Ontario community.
Significance, I think, is what it was spoken of right there, is that you now are the most successful program in school history, but you want to be significant. How did it feel to become part of the history books here tonight and know that there's still a lot in front of you guys?
It felt amazing. We've been emphasizing great start, and we did that tonight. And we're not playing just for ourselves. We're playing for a community, for each other, and we got out there and got it done.
So Bodpan, always a well-spoken kid, and what I like about him is that, he doesn't blow you away. He's not like, I think Braden's a little bit more of your prototypical, like, charismatic quarterback. Bodpan's just more like one of those kids that he's got like a feel for his environment and kind of understands like how much love and support they're getting, and he uses it to the fullest potential. And I kind of got that sense being around the team yesterday as well. So I think that this is really shaping up to be an unbelievable Friday night. We tried to overhype the first contest. We weren't able to. It stood up to what we all anticipated, and I think it kind of expecting the same type of thing, Travis.
Yeah. This is when we were talking about this too. It's like there's only one venue that could hold this place. Yeah, Madison could have done it. No, you have to have it at Arlen Field. Just because it's not just going to be Shelby and Ontario fans, which Shelby, the Whippet Athletic Complex, was sold out on Tuesday before that game. They were lined up at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon to get into that facility. You put that in Arlen Field that fits 10,000?
Yeah.
Even with those non-seat areas that people can stand. I mean, Richland County is going to go out to that. What other teams? We have the big Walnut Ashland game that people might go see. But other than that, County, they're going to be at Arlen Field for this one. That place is going to be packed. It's going to look like when Massillon, Washington always comes over for a regional final or a state semifinal, how they pack it out. Well, now it's going to be actually people from the area that are going to be watching this one, and I think they are going to be in for a treat.
Yeah. If you're a fan of high school football and you've got a free Friday night, come on out to Arlen Field. If you can't make it, of course, we'll have the live stream for you, but I'd much rather see the first matchup had about 4,000 fans at it. I'd like to see that maybe not doubled. I don't know if they can get to 8, but if we can at least get 6, 7 in the building, that place is going to be a rockin'. They'll be able to hear it down on my block a couple city streets away.
And then you can watch it again at home on the OH Report. We're always going to be there, but go to the game. Please do. You don't want to miss. That's one of those games that, I know some of the older Shelby guys sitting around drinking coffee talk about the good old days in those games. This is something that you and me will be drinking coffee at Relax in about 30, 40 years. Be like, remember that Shelby Ontario game in the playoffs? I don't know why I went country twang on there instead of old man twang, but this may be that game that people talk about for decades to come.
Well, another team that I feel like has been talked about a lot here in this area, and for good reason, is the Hillsdale Falcons. Under Trevor Klein, this team has never not made the postseason. In fact, 9 straight years, Hillsdale has continued to just build and build on a program that now it just seems like it's going like this when you look at all the young talent that is on the roster. And we had Shane Young. He head out to Falcon Country yesterday. He talked to Coach Klein about just the team overall this season and how they've been able to develop kind of a special bond to get to this point, competing in Week 13 and probably a favorite to move on to the regional final.
All right, Coach, so I just want to start off, what is the difference between previous playoff teams and this playoff team going to the semis?
I think, so I'm going to talk about the similarities a little bit of the years that we have made deep runs in the playoffs. It's been like this group right here where they're team first groups. I mean, each year there's something about each team that makes them special, but this group, I just think just the team first aspect that they bring. I mean, everybody cares about each individual on the team, and they're worried about what's best for the team, because we've had multiple guys who have had to switch positions and had to play in a position that at the beginning of the year they weren't playing, and they just stepped into those roles because they knew it was best for the team, and they've been able to execute it.
All right, Coach. Now, also, how do you build a game plan, especially for your playmakers, when you're not very familiar with the teams that you're playing in the playoffs?
Yeah, so the benefit is we get multiple films on Malvern. It's not like playing a league opponent that you see every year, but we have plenty of films on Malvern to be able to prepare for the game. So when you see those films, you get a good idea of what they like to do on offense and they like to do on defense. And then once you get that, then you can make your decisions on how you're going to attack both of those.
All right, now, last question, what do you want your players' mindset to be this week? And even for you coaches, especially how deep you guys are made into the playoffs.
So the thing that we've been telling our players is we just need them to do their job. We don't need them to be heroes or anything like that. What have got us to this point so far, that's what we need them to continue to do. And that's just being team first players, be the team that's the more disciplined team, the team that's the more physical team. And I feel if they do that, everything else will take care of itself on Friday night.
All right, Coach. Good luck in playoffs, and I appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you.
So what I love about Coach Klein's team is just how consistent they've been on both sides of the football. As I look up and down their schedule, they've scored at least 34 in 9 of their 12 games so far. But the defense, Josh Banks, also in 9 of those 12 games has held their opponents to 2 scores or less. So my challenging question for you, what impresses you more? Is it the big arm of Cale Lewis and guys like Hayden McFadden that can turn a quick out into a 94-yard touchdown? Or is it the defense and a very opportunistic one? They've scored on the defensive side of the ball about a handful of times this season. Who do you think has helped carry them more up to this point in Week 13?
Well, obviously, everybody loves to see the high-powered offenses scoring 40 points a game, but for me, when you have a defense that plays the talent that they play, they're only lost this year to Norwayne, and you only give up 13 points a game on the defensive side of things, that's more impressive to me than anything you do offensively, because you can go out and pitch a shutout and win a game 14-0 when your offense struggles. You're more likely to lose a game 50-45 when you're putting up a bunch of points, but also giving up a bunch of points.
And to really understand where the Falcons are now, we kind of need to know where they came from. You talked about that Week 10 home loss versus Norway, and their only defeat so far on the season. In the first 2 weeks of the playoffs, I think they were definitely the aggressor. They came back, they were motivated, they were hungry. 98-26 has been the head count over these last couple of weeks. And we had to know, over in Falcon country, how were they feeling about how things ended and where they are now? So Shane also talked with a pair of seniors about what's got them to this point in the season where they're on the doorstep of competing for a regional championship.
Well, we expected to be here. You know, we've been putting in the work since May of this summer, and we put our goals forward, and we know where we are. We want to do our jobs to the best of our ability. That's how it's been every week this year. Our coaches are always really good at getting us prepared, so we know what we need to do. We know how to step up, and when things get rough, like we know that we got it, so we don't need to worry about it.
I feel like we're peaking at the right time. Everything's been going really smoothly. You know, we've had a couple injuries, but we've been able to recover. And we're playing really well right now. I feel like we're playing as best as we can. There's only like 6 of us seniors, so it's been special with these guys and just seeing how the young guys have improved. And our young guys, they've done really well this year for us. Going into this week, it's just we're just looking at the guy across from us and just trying to destroy them. That's pretty much the mindset.
And that's what it feels like when you're over there, right?
They want to destroy you, Brian.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah, if you're not a part of the family, though, look out, baby. You finna get waxed.
Mm-hmm. Out.
You got a price on your head.
Right.
So upcoming for them, obviously, is going to be the toughest test that they've had in the postseason, unquestionably. They get another 11-1 team, the number 3 seed in Malvern, who very similarly to the Falcons, they've been really consistent on offense. I just don't think that the defense is as good. I did minimal studies, but Zach Truax was telling me he fully intends this to be a shootout, with the winner probably being in the 40s, if not higher, if that were to be potentially the Falcons just having a big-time game against them. What's your anticipation for this? The number 2 seed versus the number 3 seed, and you've seen the Falcons this year, as have I. Did you expect them to be the favorite going onto the field?
Yes, and just looking back, round 1, Malvern hosted Lucas, and they needed to score late to knock off Lucas by 2 scores, and you saw what Hillsdale was able to do to Lucas, so a little bit of that right there. But I think I'm going to use this take right now. I think this is the regional championship, because I think the winner of this will win the region, just because, if Benford doesn't get hurt, they might knock off JFK and be the 4 seed, and then Cuyahoga Heights scoring, coming back to beat St. Paul. Then they knocked off Berlin Center Western Reserve 7-6. So you got a couple upsets there. So the favorite, at least the favorite, but I think the winner of this region will come out of this game, and I think Hillsdale is favored, as Martin RPI did say too. They will be a regional champ, but Hillsdale's they just have so many weapons. We haven't talked much about Owen Sloan the last few weeks because Hayden McFadden's been doing everything. But you still have Owen Sloan. You still have Holland Young. You still have Cale Lewis doing his things in that defense as well. So the Falcons, favored. Book it.
Did somebody say upsets, Travis?
A little bit, yeah. We got some upsets here on the Oich Report.
With this expanded postseason, it is so rare to be a double-digit seed and still be playing right now. You know why? 2 in the OCC. West Holmes as well.
Yes.
Because that means that you've got to win not 1 but 2 games on the road, which is very tough to do unless you're the Lexington Minutemen.
Whoop.
How about big win over Rocky River? And hey, there's our head coach, Andrew Saris, joining us right now, Coach. So what's it like, man, having that glass slipper still fit? You got the Cinderella story playing out right now. How are things over in Lexington?
We're excited. We've had another great week of practice. We're coming off of 2 road wins. in the playoffs against two higher seeded teams. But our kids went into those games knowing that we can line up and play against anybody and give ourselves that chance to win.
You guys are obviously you're playing some great football over about the last 2 months. Why do you think it took this team a little while to figure things out coming out of the gates at 0-3?
Part of it, play two great football teams in week 1 and 2 that are going to be battling each other.
Fair.
Same night, Toledo Central Catholic. Play well against them, not good enough to win. But I think a big part of it is coming together and figuring out what can we do as a team, as a coaching staff, and just an overall program to try to turn things around. So I think getting that big first win week 4, getting some pressure off of our shoulders and getting some health back, and just playing together as a team and scoring some points and then limiting teams defensively to points really helped us.
And I saw that this last Friday night, Joe Caudill really put the city on his back. He accounted for all of your guys' touchdowns defensively, too. He was a menace. He was making big tackles down there in the trenches, too. So at this point in the season, that junior quarterback, would you say that he's kind of become the heartbeat of the team and he's taken it upon his shoulders to be kind of the leader and the commander out there, maybe not just on offense, but on both sides of the football?
Yeah, definitely. Joe's a kid that our entire team believes in. And he believes in the team. And I think that's part of the reason why his leadership has grown. He's doing a great job of building people up, showing his skills, and just being an overall physical football player. You mentioned it there. A lot of people like to talk to him playing quarterback, but, man, he's really special to watch defensively. And he's not one of those kids who, because he's labeled as a quarterback, that it's going to change how he plays as a linebacker. Because he's going to come downhill. He's going to lower the pads, and he wants to put some hurt on some kids.
And I saw that you guys had to outscore Rocky River down the stretch, too, on the road, 36-6 over about the last 15 minutes. And just looking at your statistics over the season, your best quarter in terms of outscoring your foe so far has been the fourth, basically the entire season. What have you seen from your team that makes them kind of step up when things matter most, when it's clutch time, when it's money time, and you're trying to get those wins? What do you like about your team when you put up those fours and you're heading into the last 12 minutes to know that they're going to step up and they're going to make some plays?
It's great feeling as a coach. I think one part of it is our kids never believe they're out of anything. And I think towards the end, they know they got to be able to grind it out to get out some of those wins. And a lot of it has to do with the athleticism on the perseverance of them. And so it's always fun. Sometimes it's a little stressful as a coach. You play in some games that go down to the wire. But it's always fun to watch this group and just really proud of them.
You've got a really fun team to watch it. You've got some big-time prospects as well. Travis has a question for you just kind of about kind of want to get theirs and obviously put up some big stats.
Yeah, he pretty much just asked it for me, but you have some big guys out there, some Division I recruits for other sports, and even in football as well. But just how do you keep them all focused on the task at hand? How do you all keep them together and focused on one goal?
You always got to preach it at practice, and the one thing is you want to get them to be focused on that opponent that week. But I'll be honest with you, we have some guys, a lot of guys who. On Saturdays, they're getting invited to different campuses to see different things, and you always want to promote that. I mean, that's those kids' livelihoods. But they do a really nice job of, once we're back in our meeting rooms, once we're back on practice, it's Lexington Minutemen football. But ultimately, you want those kids to experience that stuff because it's really cool. It's really cool for them to see, and it's and a little selfishly, it's cool for us and the coaching staff because we get a chance to see what they're going through. And sometimes these names that are calling us, talking to us, coming through the office, we idolize a little bit, and it's always really cool to get a chance to talk to them.
Yeah, it's just the gift of one guy gets to experience it. No, the whole team gets to experience it throughout.
Yep.
I think that's a pretty cool thing. I like that you allow that all to happen and let them take that in.
But not all upsets are really created equally, Coach. As you look at Toledo Central Catholic, that's a little bit different bear. 42-2 over the last 3 seasons, the 2-time defending champions of Division II and Division III. So you see one of those blue-chip type programs land on your schedule, big-time game, big environment as well, up where you guys are going to be playing on Friday night. What's the first sensation that you get when you're like, all right, it's us versus the Irish?
It's what every coach should have. when you're at this level and you want to try to be the best, you got to try to beat the best. And you know what? Our kids aren't going to back down. I know that. They are an extremely talented football team. A lot of respect for them. You know, you just mentioned two-time defending state champ. They do a really nice job. They're really big up front on both sides of the ball with some skill to go around it. However, our kids know that this is a great chance for them to broadcast and show everybody else the skills that they have.
And I know Josh wants to kind of get your mindset about how you're going about attacking this team.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, you're going up against a defending state champ, like Brian said, 42-2 over the last several seasons. What's been the difference this week in practice to prepare for a team like that versus what it's been in week past? 2 huge upsets in the first 2 playoffs, and now you're going up against a perennial powerhouse.
You know, you might be looking for some crazy answer, but I'm going to tell you what, we're attacking it just like we have Maumee and Rocky River in terms of game plan. You know, we're going to try to put our kids in the best spot, the best places for our team, but also for what they're doing on the offense and defensive side. Now, philosophically, absolutely. Do I want us to limit their snaps offensively? Definitely. Do I want us to be able to run the football and then get the ball to our guys on the outside, let them create? Absolutely. However, I don't want our kids going into this game thinking that, you know, we have to go crazy with what we're doing offensively and defensively. We're going to try to do what we do. We're going to bring our community to Tiffin Stadium, and we're excited. And so ultimately, let's just take this as any other playoff game, understand and respect our opponent, but we can't change everything we're doing just because we're playing Toledo Central Catholic.
No, I'll tell you what, I can't wait to see it Friday night, to see the growth that you guys have made and see you play against a team like that. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, so Lexington's going to take on the number 1 seed, and I think arguably probably the number 1 seed in the entire tournament, regardless of what region you're playing in, coming up on Friday night at Tiffin. So best of luck, Coach. Keep shocking the world, man. This would definitely be this would be quite the feat to bring home this victory. I think you'll catch the attention of the entire state if you can make this one happen.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. You know, I just want to give a big shout out to the entire Lexington community, the team, the coaching staff. They're doing a phenomenal job, and we appreciate you supporting us and giving us the kind words. And go Lex.
All right, baby. Andrew Sayers, thanks so much for the time, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Man, love hearing that. Just the amount of confidence that he has. And I got to say, myself and Sean Adams, we were pretty hypercritical of them in their 3rd consecutive loss, just the way that they played on the road at the Colt Corral, because it wasn't very inspired football. They had a great first drive going, and then I remember Seven Allen got hurt, and maybe he's one of those guys that's, you know, kind of the linchpin that keeps everybody connected. And when he left, it really felt like there was not necessarily like pointing fingers at each other, but there just wasn't that spirit and that energy about the team. So we knew that they were super talented, Josh, but as you were saying, it's been great to see their growth and their maturation going up against Toledo CC. We'll see just how far they've come, because even though the Irish, they've got about 4 D1 commits, you might be able to say the same thing about Lexington when it's all said and done with some of these kids' careers.
Yeah, I mean, they've got one of the top players in the state with Braden Fogel out at wide receiver, a young man that hasn't had the best season, but he's still that good that he's getting the offers he's getting, and he draws the attention he draws, which allows for Caudill to make some of the plays that he makes. They've got so many athletes on the outside, you can't put all your attention on one. Draws it to everybody else. And then I think the best part about Lexington football, and it's small school football in our area, is these guys that are monsters on offense flip to the other side and they do the exact same thing defensively.
Sure.
Like you said, Caudill, one of the best defensive players on the team. Seven Allen slides out and plays corner. These guys love the game so much that they don't get tired.
We don't get tired of seeing their highlights when they're putting up big performances either. And we will have a highlight for you guys coming up on Friday night, maybe Saturday, depending on how it goes. But we will have some video proof of Lexington's battle against Toledo Central Catholic. Let's stay in the OCC now. Actually, how about both OCCs when you're talking about the Ohio Cardinal and the Ohio Capital Conference? And a young man that was a part of the OCC, the Cardinal edition, Mr. Jonathan Langdon, who's been an OH reporter for us for the last few years. We'll rope him into the conversation here as we get prepared for two big-time teams going head-to-head coming up on Fridays. But we got to talk about your Ashland Arrows, buddy. 12-0. OCC champions. They've got one of the hottest prospects in the entire state of Ohio. Got to feel pretty nice to be a part of the Arrow family right now. I'm sure there's a lot of pride brimming from you.
Yeah, I think so too. I haven't seen, I think it was 10 years ago, right around when I moved to Ashland, was the last time I've seen an Arrow football team this good. So it's exciting. I haven't been able to watch too many games. I know there are a bunch of live streams I can go check out, but just been so busy as of late. But I know that the Arrows are ready, and I know they've got a star quarterback, Nathan Bernhardt, and he's leading the way, and the rest of the weapons are really adding to their attack. And obviously they're OCC champions, Ohio Cardinal Conference champions for a reason, and now they're going to get to take on one of the top dogs in the Ohio Capital Conference, as you said.
Yeah, this is going to be such a fun head-to-head. Of course, we've been following Big Walnut throughout their progression this season, and they lose on opening night, have not lost since. The Arrows, how about undefeated on the season, the OCC champions outright for the first time in a long time. And for them, this is their first undefeated season, I think, since 2006. It was my first year living in the state of Ohio, and I remember that it really caught my eye and my attention, some of the talent that they had. They had a quarterback that went on, I think, played Division I football too. So a lot of things are coming together full circle here some 19 years later. But as we wait, do we have our next special guest? We do not. So the man that's kind of helped make this resurgence for the program, a guy that I think was there when you were there, Jonathan, of course, or maybe he just left a little bit before, but Scott Valentine and what he's been able to do to re-energize the entire football program, that not that they were having bad years, but it wasn't up to the same caliber of the expectations that we had with Coach Valentine. So to see him come back round 2 with this program and have this type of success just in his second season, it's got to be very satisfying, I think, as a member of Ashland Nation.
Yeah, and he was there. So all 4 years of high school for me, he was at the helm. I think it was when I graduated the following season, he went to Madison. But just getting the chance to kind of walk the halls while he was a coach, he's a great guy, talks to everybody. And you can kind of just tell that translates into practice and a lot of respect. The players have a lot of respect for him. And just the way that they carry themselves as a team translates through how Valentine acts as a person. So it's going to be exciting to have him on. And I just think that overall, you did talk about that quarterback from 2006. I think that overall Ashland's been a pretty good program for quarterbacks, because I know a couple of names, like Keegan Armitage was the name that I remember when I first moved there. He played pretty well, went to Baldwin Wallace, I believe. Mitch Heilman was somebody that I played with basketball with, and he was the quarterback there, I believe, for 3 seasons after him. So they've been able to have a couple of solid guys, and I think the culmination, this has been brewing for a while, that we were going to see a guy like Nathan Bernhardt stem out and be a really big piece to Ashland.
Real quick, shout out Keegan Armitage. The first ever OH Report video was Ashland's playoff game against Mashland, Washington, and Coach Valentine, nice enough to welcome me into the locker room, and I got a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, and that's what ended up setting us off. So if Keegan's dad did not make that call to me and say, hey, you want to make a little cash and make a video for the team tonight, maybe this whole thing doesn't get started. So you're right, but a whole nice long lineage of quarterbacks over there at Ashland. They've had a ton of them. And I really did want to pick Coach V's brain and just see if we knew that they were going to have the best quarterback in the conference, maybe in the area, but did they feel like they had a roster from top to bottom that can compete? I would like to know, did that kind of transpire throughout the course of the season when they won throughout the non-conference and then they get into the OCC and kept it going, or if this was something they kind of knew all along?
Yeah, I think so. So last year was interesting because I knew about Nathan and I knew that he was coming up, but the wins just weren't translating the way that I would have thought. So just an extra year to kind of develop those other guys and They've got a good receiving core. One name that sticks out to me is Killian O'Brien. I've heard him a lot as a receiver, and he's helping out that offense. And also defensively, they've got some really good guys. So that's another thing that's been kind of built over the years that I just remember a bunch of names defensively where they've kind of paved the way and they've done a good job mentoring. And I think that's a big thing with Ashland. Mentorship there is huge, and they're really developing the young guys, I would say, better than most other schools in the area. So Ashland, top to bottom, is a very well-run program.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how they compete against Big Walnut, who, again, they've won 11 straight. That they've really had it rocking and rolling since an opening night loss against St. Clairsville, and a team that's been tested throughout the season. They've had walk-off wins. They've had to score late in games. So this one of the more exciting games I think that we have on our schedule coming up here on Friday. But let's go ahead and let's shift gears here, because there are still not one but two KMAC teams
Darn right
for a state championship.
Oh, yeah.
And I know, as one of the kind of co-hosts of the KMAC Corner for a lot of the season, Jonathan, you've seen a lot of the Cary Blue Devils and the #1 seed in Division 7, Region 27.
Danville. You said Cary.
Oh,
Danville.
The other Blue Devils.
The other Blue
Cary,
Devils.
another team that always runs through the playoffs, though. So
Hey.
you can get them. It might be
Rewind.
a compliment. You know?
No disrespect to my boys down on Tough Street down there, but just talk to me about just kind of the overall vibe, because I know you were down there at practice taking it in, and you've seen these guys kind of build up to this moment over these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was exciting to see them go down there because obviously last Friday I saw the seniors play at Tough Street for the final time, but they're still getting the chance to practice there, and they're kind of taking it in. A lot of the seniors are really stepping it up in practice. They were so interestingly enough, Danville, I'm sure other programs do this, but the seniors wore different colors. So the seniors were wearing black, so you could kind of tell who they were out of everybody else, and they were all playing really well at practice today. So they're really soaking it in, taking advantage of these last couple of moments at Tough Street. But they honestly, I am saying they're playing their heart out, they're not ready to be done yet. And I know that they've got a big run in them. And it's interesting because they went 12-0 last year up to this point. They're 10-2 this year, so they had a couple of losses, but both of those losses are to undefeated teams still. So this is still a very high caliber team, despite the 2 losses, despite being second in the KMAC. And it's exciting now because this Danville team is just going to develop even more. And like Aiden Burke, you see on your screen scoring touchdowns, he's a senior. But some of those other pieces like Ashton Spalding, a junior, Siren Wallace, I believe, is going to, right here, get this next touchdown. He's just a freshman. So you just see the growth from this team top to bottom. I talked about it from Ashland, but I'm going to talk about it with the Blue Devils as well. So Danville, a team to watch out for. And I know we're talking about week 13, but we're going to talk about this team, I think, week 14, maybe even week 15. And who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I have we've been on many Danville games throughout the season. We've seen many other teams in the KMAC, but it seems like you just nailed it on the head. They've been getting better since that Northmor loss. I talked to Coach Bloom before the Devil Dog game. I said, he said, we reset after that. Our passing defense was nothing. We were unable to do that. We weren't playing Danville football. And then what do? They shut down Jax Lester and company on that night, and it just seems like they have been reset since that Northmor loss. And you had Aiden Burke. Now you have Wallace, the freshman, running wild. It just seems like you got that feel for Danville once again. And we've been saying it all season. This is a very favorable region now because Dalton's no longer there. Hillsdale's no longer there. JFK's no longer there. Lucas is no longer there. So this it feels like this is theirs for the taking, and the only way they can't get it is if they stumble.
So they've got Miller on Friday. So I brought that up with a couple of the players, Aiden Burke, Caleb Lucas, and Coach Bloom, and here's what they had to say about it.
We're coming off a win, last game at home. It's going to feel great, moving on to a different environment, getting the feel for things. I know our crowd's going to come with us, so it's just going to be another business trip.
I would say that we definitely have had a lot of juice going into this game. When the other team has a motto, something like, MPT or most physical team out there, it really lights a fire underneath their butts. We want to get after it. We want to show that we're the most physical team on the field.
Obviously, we don't like to lose, but, the 2 losses we have this year have obviously had a lot of success. Every team kind of clicks at its own time, And I think ours started to click really around that Centerburg game. And that, you know, they've been able to get better and better each week. So obviously you want that team to be able to click at the right time, and I think we have, and we're going to keep that going on towards the playoffs or through the playoffs.
So what I kind of want to address here is what Caleb Lucas said. So Miller High School is who they're playing on Friday, and their motto is MPT, which is an acronym for Most Physical Team. Now, if you're a Danville Blue Devil fan and you're reading that,
bulletin board material,
you got something to say about that. So I think it's interesting how this Friday it's going to set the scene to where who's going to be the most physical team, and in that case, that's going to be the winner of this week.
Well, I mean, take us back, 2 years ago, a regional semifinal against a team that had RPO, and you see what they did there. They came back late and knocked off Lucas to get there. But correct me if I'm wrong. You called the Centerburg-Danville game, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And Coach Bloom talked about it, but just you could see that difference from the Northmor game to that game there, because Centerburg is a passing team, and what did they do? They completely shut them down. A couple big interceptions in the red zone. Was that the moment that you thought that it was changing for Danville as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And Centerburg, they played a really decent game. I would say that they kind of let things slip there in that matchup against Danville in the first quarter with those 2 interceptions, but that was kind of the turning point for this Danville team. I asked a couple of the players when they thought the turning point was, and they rightfully so said their 41-6 loss against Northmor, and Coach disagreed. He said the Centerburg win, because that was a 12-0 shutout of an offensive juggernaut in Centerburg that, by the way, is a division lower than you, and they're pretty darn good in that division as well. So just the defensive showing from them in the last couple of weeks in the season, and also in the playoffs as well. They've only given up 2 points, and that's not even on the defensive end. That was the offense snapping it into the end zone. So they have technically not given up a score in the playoffs in their first 2 weeks. So Danville is just one of those teams where they're going to ride the momentum as far as they can take it. And from what I've talked to with the coaches, they're kind of preparing for this game against Miller, who has a really good quarterback. They're preparing like they're playing against Blake Sipes a second time. So it's interesting how kind of things are scouting out to be. And Miller's got a really good run offense, but Danville's been really good at stopping that the last couple of weeks. Week 10, you think about East Knox, they limited them to just 20 rushing yards.
Blake
and then
Elliott,
Bridgeport
too.
The next week, Blake Elliott 2 yards. And then the next week against Bridgeport, they only gave up 5 rushing yards. So I'm just really excited to see if that sort of trend can continue into this week against Miller squad that, by the way, is making history. I'm going to get to talk with their head coach, Dominic Scott, tomorrow. But those last 2 weeks, those are their first 2 playoff wins in program history.
Wow.
So they're going to be coming into this game with a chip on their shoulder because they don't have very many playoff wins. Danville has more wins last year in the playoffs than they do in their entire existence with the football program. So they're going to have something to say about it on Friday. I think that'll make things really interesting.
And Brian, I know you're kind of the outside eyes. You haven't been able to cover Danville much this year at all. But what are your thoughts on the ride that they have had this year? The tough losses, Hopewell Loudon, Northmor, then they start coming back against Centerburg with the shutout, and to now. What are your thoughts on these Blue Devils?
Well, I think I'm going to side with the players and maybe not Coach Bloom on what the turning point was, because anytime you get your butt kicked, because I was a part of one of those games too in basketball where we got so embarrassed that I remember I actually showed up for practice on Monday. I could not wait to tell everybody, pipe down if you're messing around. I'm playing for keeps this week, and then it built, and we had a great season. We've seen that with Danville. We've seen what they've done these last few weeks. You look at the playoff scores, 114-2. They put those 2 points on the board. I think Jonathan said that they might have even done it on purpose for some reason. But I've been very impressed to see that the running attack has been able to lead the way for them, because that's the calling card for Danville. I covered them a bunch the last couple of years, and they've continued that this season. Be tough and physical up front, and then they've got enough dudes to hand the ball off to, and every now and again, a little change of pace, a little swing pass. They've got the Philly special that's now called just the Danville regular, I think is what Jonathan's calling it now. So very well coached team. They've got a young guy. He's hungry. This team, I think, is going to put it on Miller, would be my guesstimation. If this is a squad that's never been this deep in the postseason, this is what the Blue Devils do. they've been gearing towards this since they lost that heartbreaker against Downton last year, and I fully expect Danville to probably run away with this game and show that they indeed are the MT or MPT on Friday night. But
and I think I agree with you, Brian. I think I agree with you, Brian, because looking at the statistics from Miller, their rushing yards primarily come from two guys. But the difference is Danville, in that game last week, I believe had 5 different rushing touchdown scorers, if I'm remembering right. 2 touchdowns for Burke, 2 touchdowns for Siren Wallace, Josh Byers, Ashton Spalding. It might have been 4, but I think 1 got close. So just the dynamic that they have where they can give the ball to pretty much anybody and feel good about their chances at getting into the end zone. So I just think the multiple weapons is going to go against Miller. And Danville all week they've been saying beat the Falcons, prove that you're the MPT. So I think there's a lot of anger. I'm not going to say anger, but just a lot of just a chip on Danville's shoulder, just as big as there is one on Miller's.
So the Blue Devils, who the number 1 seed, they're 10-2. They will play number 5 Miller, who also is 10-2, coming up on Friday night. Jonathan Langdon is going to be on the call for that one. Then there is number 2 Northmor in their region, who's still hanging around, 12-0, and they've been about equally as dominant, I think, as Danville here of late. 27 points is all they've allowed since week 6, folks. That's half a season ago. So, Travis, we both felt like coming into the year, there had been this knocking on the door by Northmor to be not just the KMAC champion, but a team to really contend with within the postseason. How gratifying is it for you as kind of an honorary coach and a guy that spends a lot of time over at the Castle to see it come to fruition, and it's not just the offense or the seniors having great seasons. It feels like pretty much everybody's getting theirs, and it's one big family. It's all working out right now down in North Bloomfield Township.
First of all, I kind of have to apologize to Centerburg fans for thinking I was homering the Northmor game. They had some plays afterwards, but just seeing I've been around these players since their freshman year. Last year, seniors, the year before that. I've known them their 4 years. To see them exceed and do what they're doing right now, I'm like a proud papa right now. It's so flipping cool being down there at the Castle because everybody's just upbeat. I was at practice today for the preview and the interview that you'll see here momentarily, but it's business as usual, but also they just got a little extra pep in their step because they know they have the pieces that can get things done, and it's just so awesome walking around the tailgates. They do tailgates in North Bloomfield Township before the games, but walking around the tailgates through the stands before the game, North Bloomfield Township, just a little township in Morrow County, but they are so excited, they're so pumped, and they are ready for Friday night. But ahead of Friday night, they have to get ready. And I did talk to head coach Scott Armrose today about Ridgewood, and not only Ridgewood, but how the Golden Knights have been getting better since the end of the regular season. All right, Coach, second consecutive year, you're in the 3rd round of the postseason, but it seems like this team, they benefited from that run last year, knocking off Centerburg convincingly in the second time around in Caldwell. Just where do you guys think you are right now? Do you think there's some more room to improve, or do you think this is where you're peaking and you think you have a chance the next couple of weeks?
We always hope that we're getting better every week. We're playing our best football each week. So, it's our goal to be playing our best football right now in week 13. So we always feel like there's room for improvement, and we go into our approach and our preparation with that attitude every week.
And, first time around in Centerburg, it was a battle. This time, you guys put it away, and you kept it with the defense as well. Just what impressed you that second time around against Centerburg that allowed you guys to run away with it?
I think it showed that we have been playing better football, week 12 than we did week 4, and that's the goal. Defensive line was dominant as they have been all season long. They did a great job up front. Linebackers floated the ball and tackled, and offensively and special teams made big plays when we needed to.
All right, next up, you got Ridgewood, a chance to go to a regional final, but you got to go through them first. Just what's the scouting report on them?
Offensively, they're big up front, and I got a quarterback that's a bruiser. He's a runner. He's got great speed, great vision. He's a really good runner. Looks like a fullback playing quarterback, but at the same time, he's got the ability to see the field really well and throw it downfield. And they got some receivers with really good speed that he can throw to. Very big challenge for us defensively this week. Offensively, they're not as big, but they're fast. Really good team speed, more team speed than we've seen all year. It's hard to compare them to anybody we've played. They run an odd front. They do a lot of twisting and stunting and angling with their defensive line with some quick guys. And it's quite a challenge for us offensively as well.
But I mean, just mean with the work you guys have done over the last year, the players you have, you think you can match up pretty well athletically with them?
Well, we hope so. That's the goal, to be able to match up athletically with a team like Ridgewood. And as we started this season, we want to get to the point where we're matching ourselves up against some of the elite players in the state of Ohio in Division VI, and we get an opportunity to do that Friday night.
So, Brian, they will be going up against another physical running back in Ridgewood. They beat Garraway. Garraway, a team that steamrolled Northmor. They're not nearly as good as they were, but still 10-2 Garraway. But Ridgewood has a quarterback that he's big, he's athletic. He had about 172 rushing yards against Garraway in their win there. So that rush defense from Northmor, the linebackers, they're going to be up for the test because they can do it. He can pass the ball a little bit more, but I still think the Golden Knights are just as athletic, and they might have more athletes than just the few that they have. Also, Ridgewood, a very physical offensive and defensive line, but we kind of saw that in Mount Gilead. They also play a game where they're going to try and run time off the clock like the Mount Gilead game because they think with their running quarterback, that's the only way they can do it because Northmore's such a high-powered offense.
So for those Indians, obviously they had a great execution.
All right, Coach, second consecutive year, you're in the third round of the postseason.
And
yeah, that Mount Gilead drive was just 13 minutes. Nuts.
Outside of that and then that Centerburg game, they really haven't been pressed very much so far this season, Jonathan. So what would you say are your expectations for Northmor going into, I would say, their toughest test so far of the season, bar none? That includes teams like Danville and others in their non-league. This looks like a formidable opponent and a team that I think probably should be a big concern for the Golden Knights coming up on Friday.
Yeah, I think whenever you look at a team that's taken on Northmor, you got to first look at their secondary. Can they handle the pass, especially with A.J. Bauer and how good that he is throwing the football? And most of the opponents that Northmor's faced this season, the answer to that question is no. So it's got to ask the same question about Ridgewood. Has the scouting report shown that they may be vulnerable behind the safeties? Are the corners going to have bad matchups because Jax Wenger is just that guy? And Bo Landon makes big plays. That's why we call him Big Play Bo. So,
darn right.
Defensively, that's where I would look that's where I would look first. Defensively, Ridgewood can have a good offense, but they got to be able to stop this train of a Northmor offense.
And you can't forget the Tavon Austin of the K-Mac and Cohen Becker, too. At the beginning of that clip, I was trying to mouth it to you, Brian. I can hear Ken Parrott yelling even when it's muted because that was how excited he was. But you're exactly right, Jonathan. I think Northmor has the better athletes. Ridgewood has the players that are fast, but I think Northmor can really match up with them. It's really going to come down to, though, the offensive and defensive lines. Northmor, like I said, they were battle-tested against Mount Gilead. Mount Gilead tried to play the game that I think Ridgewood will with their quarterback, is just try and ground and pound, get 3-4 yards off there, take 9-10 minutes off the clock and then score, and then hopefully you get a stop or a turnover like Mount Gilead did. They didn't win the game, but it's kind of like the blueprint that you think some of these teams are going to use against Northmor.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So the more time that goes off the clock where Northmore's not touching the football, the better for Ridgewood. I think that has been the clear scouting report, but Coach Armrose knows that. There's so many other teams that have tried that. That's probably the most simple, I wouldn't say simple, but I'd say that's the most used play strategy, I would say, in high school football, is just to make sure you hold on to the football longer than them. So I'm sure that Coach will have things ready to go for that sort of situation. In Ridgewood, we talked about it, they're going to be a run-heavy team. They've got some size on them. Can Northmor match up with that? And that's kind of where you're talking about the offensive and defensive line. I just think that the battles they've faced in the regular season, I think they have them ready for this, especially with that Mount Gilead team that I know that they're not even in the playoffs, but I always find a way to bring them up. Just one of the best front sevens in our area. Unfortunate that they didn't have the offense to keep them in. But I just think Northmor, just with that Mount Gilead game and seeing how they played them, I think that might get them ready for a matchup like this.
I think the complement of weapons from what I've seen, not with my own eyes this season, Northmor, but the fact that they got so many dudes is what's going to be problematic, of course, for any defense to try to match up with. And A.J. Bauer, he just seems like he's such a calming presence out there on the field, almost 70% of his completion so far this season. So really looking forward to seeing how the Golden Knights perform against a team potentially of their caliber, 11-1 overall on the season. And, of course, we will have Mr. Travis Berardi along with Ken Parent on the call
Newark
for that one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun because it's history. This is the third time Northmore's been in a regional semifinal. This is the second time only, though, second consecutive year, too, that they've been into the third round of the playoffs. They've never made it to a regional final, and this is, like we said, their best test. And, other people, other pundits, Martin RPI, thinking that they will win their region. So it could be a very historic night down there in Newark for all the Northmor fans, and I'll be sporting my Golden Knight shirt that night because we're allowed to now.
And it's definitely
couldn't do it last week because I have a lot of respect for Andy
I think
Coelho
the
and
fans
his squad.
felt like you were wearing one.
Well, Ken especially, but that's okay. But no, much respect for Andy Coelho and that Centerburg squad. And they might be one of the favorites next year with what they have coming back. But for right now, it's the Golden Knights.
And it's definitely helping that. What was I going to say? But I think it's definitely helping that this is their best chance to make it to the regional final. So I think if you get it now, and that's going to set your program forward. Even with all the people leaving, there's going to be a new standard, and that's something I talked about with Danville as well. So there's a standard that's clearly been set, and no matter who you lose to, how many losses you have in your book, can you just get to that standard, which for Danville right now is a regional final, and that's what they're looking for this week. So, and I'm not sure, Travis, do you know the answer to this, but when's the last time we saw two KMAC teams make a regional final?
I don't
Never.
think we have. Because the year that East Knox made that run that helped boost the OH report, it was the only other team might have been Highland, and they were up a couple divisions. They wouldn't have made it either. So I don't think there was. Fredericktown, they won a state championship before, but I think it's only been one. So for this to happen, and it takes me back a couple years for softball. We had 5 teams playing in district championship games. One of them playing each other was Fredericktown Centerburg, but we had 4 district champions out of the KMAC. That's why I say this is one of the most underrated small school conferences in the state. Yeah, you got the MAC. Just stay off to your side, MAC. But with the KMAC, you have in multiple sports. You got a state champion in team and state runner in cross country. The track teams are good. Like all across the board, you have teams competing deep into the season. So that's why I think the KMAC is such an underrated conference small school, and that's why this could be such a monumental Friday night, because you could have 2 teams out of your 8 playing for regional championships.
And last thing for me, I just think this could have very easily been a 6-team KMAC playoff year, because you lost Jax Lester for East Knox for a couple of weeks, and those are a couple of losses that you probably would have been able to win if you had him. And then Mount Gilead just had so many close games to where some of them could have gone their way. Yeah, exactly. So just can't have losses like that. So that's 2 extra teams, and is that 6 right there? Yeah, so then it would just be Cardington and Loudonville missing out. So interesting year for the KMAC, and it'll be fun to see next year if they're able to have that sort of production again.
So 2 teams for the KMAC still competing for the right to be state champions this year, but just 1 remaining right now in the Northern 10. And it's a team that might surprise, I think, a few folks out there. How about the play of the Mohawk Warriors, the number 4 seed? They are still going right now in Division 7. And Joshua Banks, you're going to be calling their game, well, at least a pregame. You'll be up there on Friday night taking in the action for this one. And a tough class for them, of course. They've got the number 1 seed in Columbus Grove. So just to get to this point in the season, though, let's talk about Mohawk and what they've been able to do, having to get through the teams like Cary and Colonel Crawford, who have been kind of owning a lot of the awards here recently in the Northern 10. Then they need the Northern 10 Conference Championship game to break their way Week 10 against Seneca East, and they get that one on the road. Just thoughts on this Warriors team and what they've done to be able to earn the right here to still be playing in Week 13.
Well, and how about their 2 losses? They lose in Week 1 to Calvert by 1 point, a team that just lost in a regional quarterfinal, and then they get upset, we'll call it, I think, on homecoming by Upper Sandusky,
Yes.
a Holman Upper Sandusky team that battled their way back and made the postseason.
True.
But to dominate the way they dominated, I mean, they dominate the teams that always win the conference. They beat Crawford 35-7 in North Robinson. They beat Cary by 2 scores. They beat Seneca East at Seneca East on senior night to win the N10, and then in the postseason, they've dominated the 2 games they've played there. It's been impressive.
And probably the most impressive player, well, I think probably not arguably, how about Ben Bogner, man, and what this kid has meant to this team on both sides of the football. And you look at his numbers, and then they're staggering when it's almost 2,000 through the air and over 1,100 on the ground. What do you think about him is so tough for opposing defenses to line up and try to slow down, because he's been having his way with just about everybody, and I think particularly in the second half of the season?
I think it's just consistency. He won the N10 title as far as interceptions go. He's only throws 5 picks all year, and he goes for almost 3,500 all-purpose yards and 36 touchdowns. Those are, we talk about Braden DeVito, Bogdan Miller. Without those 2 guys in the area, he might lead the area in all-purpose yards and touchdowns.
Yeah,
So,
he's been that dude. And
Yeah.
defensively, too, opportunistic. We saw 5 interceptions in that Week 10 win. They're going to need a lot of that, though, going against Columbus Grove. Still undefeated on the season, and the Bulldogs have been a really tough out for the Northern 10 here over the last few years. They knocked Cary out a season ago. I watched that game. Crawford a couple of years before that. Do you feel like this is just, unfortunately, a rough draw for the Warriors?
I mean, when you look at a team in Columbus Grove that averages 42 points a game, only gives up 10, and they've got a senior running back that's got 2,100 yards and 30 touchdowns on the season, it kind of becomes a scary situation for the Mohawk Warriors.
So they're going to need to bring their A game unquestionably coming up on Friday night. So obviously you're going to be a part of the game, so I'm not going to bring you in to try to make any predictions. But Travis, we know that the Northern 10, I think from top to bottom collectively, we thought it would be the MOAC that had the most depth. I would actually argue by the end of the year that it ended up being the Northern 10. They've seen some great quality competition all year long. Probably not as good as the Bulldogs, though. But do you at least expect this to be like a 1 or 2 score game going down into crunch time, and the Warriors have an opportunity to win this thing?
Yeah, I do. I just think Mohawk is just, I wouldn't say defied the odds, because back in the preseason coaches show or media show that I did, I said, could there be a couple, underdogs, dark horses that could compete for the championship? And all I heard was Seneca East and Mohawk. And what did those 2 teams do? They rose to the top. Mohawk finally being the champion, but I mean, they were battle tested. The Northern 10, a good conference this year. Even like you said, Upper Sandusky had some big wins. Beat Mount Gilead early on, beat Mohawk, got themselves into the playoffs. But I think they're not gonna, just curl up in the ball because they see the name Columbus Grove on the shirt. I think they are going to seize the moment. They're going to take advantage of this playoff run that you will see on the OH Report live and free. But I think Mohawk's going to, all you have to do, keep it close throughout the first half, keep it close into the third quarter, then you never know what could happen. That's the big upset. That's everything in the making of an upset, is you just got to keep it close till the end, then anything could happen.
Well, it's all win or go home, of course, from this point forward, but a little bit more cachet, more on the line. When you start getting this deep, you're more invested. You've had extra weeks of practice, more bumps and bruises to deal with, and, of course, the weather actually starting to feel like fall out there. So some of those big hits that you might take, or even some of the limited ones over on the sidelines, getting pushed into your own guys or something, it just all kind of accumulates a bit more.
Well, also, you get to this moment, you're like, we're only 1 or 2 wins away from practicing on Thanksgiving. That is other than playing for a state championship, that is the second greatest day of the year, is waking up early in the morning, going out onto the field, and actually playing a meaningful practice before you go home to watch the football and eat the Thanksgiving. That's it's not a turkey bowl, but it's actual meaningful practice on Thanksgiving. That's my second greatest day of a practice that you could have, is that one.
What do you think about a turkey bowl for the OH Reporters this year? You guys, are we too old at this point, or
I'll be a kicker. I could be your kicker.
Have a bunch of backup kickers, maybe just a kicking competition.
Field goal competition. That'd work.
Yeah. Well, for the brand, baby. We'll make Pat real happy. We'll drill a couple.
If you guys want to watch, Brian and I did a competition back, and we were okay.
You know what? I was proud
you
of my
kicked the
last
distance
kick.
one. Yeah,
I was. All right, guys, so coming up on Friday night, here's what we got going down live and free on the OH Report. Well, actually, on a delay, this one can't be live and free because of Spectrum, but we'll have number 1 Big Walnut versus number 4 Ashland at Marion Harding. We will have that starting at 10 p.m. Toledo Central Catholic against number 12 Lexington, the 2-time defending champs. We'll have a highlight of that game going down either late Friday night or early on Saturday morning. I will be over at Arlen Field for number 2 Shelby versus number 3 Ontario. Get out there if you're a Richland County high school sports fan. It's supposed to be pretty reasonable weather. Come out, get some hot cocoa, and enjoy what should be one heck of a Friday night football game over at Arlen Field. Tons of juice behind that one.
The game.
Travis will have number 2 Northmor versus number 3 Ridgewood down in Newark. He and Ken Parrott will be on the call for that one. Live pregame beginning at about 6:45. Hillsdale versus Malvern, another 2 versus 3 game going down at Maslin Perry. We'll have Zach Truax on the call over there. Number 1 Columbus Grove versus Mohawk. WQEL will have the call on that one. Joshua Banks will have your live pregame show along with some postgame coverage as well. And then number 1 Danville versus number 5 Miller at Corning, Miller
From
Corning from Corning at Sheridan. Jonathan Langdon will be on the call along with Brandon Ehrenberg. So, I mean, what a fun night. If you're not going to go out and about, probably a good idea to get about 3-4 different screens going all at the same time.
Yeah.
I like the Facebook, how you can just like flip and keep an eye on one and then go right back over to the other one. You don't even have to break stream and then get the YouTube on a few of the other games. But this is the most games we've ever had this deep in the season ever.
6 streams, 5 live streams on a regional semifinal, and we're assured of at least 2 for a regional championship. I think we're going to have at least 5. Which is easily a record for us. I think Martin RPI is exactly right. I think Danville, Northmor, and Hillsdale will be winners. You're going to get the winner of Shelby, Ontario. You're going to get the winner of Big Walnut, Ashland. And then, hey, can Mohawk pull off the upset? Can Lexington pull off the upset of the century? The upset in the state, at least, for that? We'll find out there, too. But we're going to have a busy couple. We're going to be practicing on Thanksgiving, Brian.
Yep.
You're darn right. We're going to be back at it. Better than ever, maybe a little bit heftier than ever, but that's definitely the goal, is that we will be getting prepared for a big-time week coming up. Joshua Banks, thanks for coming in here tonight and for all that you've done for the OH Report this year. It's been a heck of a season, man, breaking you in. Pretty fun getting out on all those Friday nights, isn't it, in a lot of different environments.
You can't ask for a better Friday night than the 10 weeks of the fastest time of the year, and now we're 3 weeks into postseason with all these teams playing, and like Travis said, we're going to have at least 3. I'd have to agree with, I think, 5 playing into Week 13, and honestly, maybe 3 or 4 of those playing into Week 14, winning a regional title.
And Travis, for your Northmor Golden Knights, what an opportunity to be the first team in program history to get to that regional championship. You were over there at practice today, and I got to imagine that the mood is exactly that, knowing that they've got something right in front of them, and probably a big favorite to do it.
Business as usual over at the castle today. They're taking care of business. They had the country music and the classic rock blaring over the loudspeakers, yeah, it was just everybody was getting ready. Everybody's pumped to have it. They all came out. You're doing the game, right? I'm like, you know I'm doing the game. They're like, okay. Because I'll see you guys Friday. They're going to have their little walk-off. So Friday afternoon, I'm going to try and get there on time this time because they did early last year, but they're going to walk through the school with the band and everything. So hopefully I'll get a little video of that for the pregame. But, yeah, great time in North Bloomfield Township for them as well. Is they're starting to be like Hillsdale and Lucas, too. They're running off a streak of playoffs. Since 2017, they had one missed year in there, but they're becoming a household name now in the playoffs, in the playoff talk.
Yep, so was Ontario. Shelby, of course, they've got the pedigree, so I cannot wait to see how that one all boils down on Friday night over at Arlen Field. So let's get the biggest crowd that stadium has ever
Richland
seen.
County.
I'll be out there. Hope to see you as well. But for now, for tonight, for our special playoff football preview, if you will, we're signing out, guys. We'll see you coming up on Friday. Stay warm out there and just enjoy fall. It's officially